Well, hello there, you guys, and welcome back for another episode of the Mr. Healthy Habits Show. Thank you so much again for joining me here today. And today we are going to discuss the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, continuing our discussion on Buddhism and covering the Buddhist prescription, if you will, for reducing suffering, reducing our attractions and our aversions and our primal confusion that are the main cause behind much of our suffering that we do experience in life. And before we get into that, I'd like, of course, to remind you all to follow me wherever you are listening to this podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Mr. Healthy Habits Show. And also follow me on Instagram at philosophical.reminders. Again, the page is growing and it's ever evolving. And I've started to do this pretty cool thing that I like with my carousels, where now I'm actually going to add in practical tips and strategies to help you implement the different philosophies that I share within your life. So go ahead and check that out when you get a chance. I mean, I'm sure that if you're into this kind of stuff, that you will find it beneficial. It's very beneficial for me to go ahead and share these concepts and ideas with you guys as well. So thank you again for joining me here today and for checking out the Instagram and following me wherever you can. It's very much appreciated. So in the first episode here on our discussion into Buddhist philosophy, we discuss the three fundamental principles behind Buddhist philosophy that I prefaced as basically being all that we need to know in life to understand why things happen and to be able to move past them. And those three things are the concept of impermanence. Everything is impermanent. Everything is in constant change. Therefore, it is impermanent. Interdependence. Everything is interdependent. We live in one large cause and effect nexus. And this is not just Buddhist philosophy. This is science. Isaac Newton very much believed the same thing. I mean, he is the one that came up with the concept of cause and effect. And it is and in many ways, a continuation of Buddhist philosophy, because the Buddha very much believed the same thing, that we were interdependent based off of external circumstances and our environment. And because of that, everything is constantly changing. And because everything is constantly changing and we are interdependent phenomena, we are also selfless. We are really largely just some biochemical response to the environment. It's just a matter of stardust and physics in many respects. In the previous episode, we discussed the first three of the Noble Truths, and the first being that all of life is suffering. All of existence is suffering. Now, I've kind of mutated this a bit to a type of philosophy that sits better with me, sits more well with me. And that being that all of life is not suffering, but all of life is struggle. All of life is struggle. But then again, struggle is not synonymous with suffering. Just because you struggle doesn't mean that you have to suffer. You can struggle and approach struggle with a joyful heart, an optimistic outlook, and even an arrogance and a cockiness if you appreciate that kind of characteristic. I've used this analogy before, but I mean, I could remember several times when I was a kid being on the road with my father and getting a flat tire, as happens, but my father was never one to feel sorry for himself or to woe is me about the world. He would simply turn and look at me and say, "Time me," and see how fast that he can do that. And he approached it as a challenge. It was not a source of suffering, even though it was a struggle, but it was something that he took on head first and went at with joy in his heart and saw it as a challenge. So all of life is suffering. We really don't have to look at it that way, as far as I see it, from my perspective. From my perspective, all of life may be struggle, but then again, sometimes you can have fun with the struggle. I mean, look at any game that you play in life. I mean, it's a struggle, but oftentimes it's a fun struggle. The second of the noble truths was the cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering is our attractions and our aversions and what is known as primal confusion. Attractions, meaning there is something external that I want and that I can't have, and that is a form of suffering. Or aversions, I've been given something in life that I don't want, and now this is a form of suffering. To oversimplify the concept of attractions and aversions, but I'd encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episode where we go in a little deeper into those concepts. And primal confusion, which is the failure to understand the first three principles, that everything is interdependent, everything is impermanent, and that we are fundamentally selfless. Primal confusion is really about the failure to understand and to keep these three principles into perspective. Now, the third of the noble truths was that we can do something about this. We don't have to just accept it as fate. We can do something about suffering. There is a way that we can cure this and that we can move past it and that we can develop a life of practice where we can better shrug these things off and keep them in perspective and know what they are and detach ourselves from any kind of suffering and move into a more joyous, more confident state in life. And now we are going to get into the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth, which is also known as the Buddhist prescription for suffering, what we do about it, what we can do to alleviate suffering from ourselves, from those around us, from the world in general. How we can go about this in a systematic, practical approach. And we do this by practicing what is known as the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path for those that should live a noble and virtuous life. Now, we are going to get into the Eightfold Path right here on the other side of this break. So I hope to see you on the other side. Thanks for joining me. Well, thank you all for joining me again on the other side of that brief break from our sponsor. And now we are going to get into the philosophy of Buddhism in terms of the prescription for suffering and how we can go about alleviating suffering from our lives and the lives of those around us. Now, the concept or practice that we're going to discuss here is going to be the practice of the Eightfold Path. Now, these are 8 ways to approach life that are geared towards alleviating our suffering and the suffering of those around us. So the first concept here in the Eightfold Path is the concept of right action. Right action. Now, what exactly does that mean? Right action basically means that we take actions that are geared towards the alleviation of suffering and not actions that are conducive to the suffering of those around us and ourselves. In other words, do things that make you feel good and that will alleviate your suffering in the long term. Get out and exercise. That is a way to alleviate stress and suffering. Eat right. Read philosophy, read fiction, read whatever you enjoy, expand your mind, go out and see things that make you feel positive, read positive things, listen to positive messages. Watch positive things on television that are going to help you and not things that are just going to build up angst and all kinds of negative emotions towards others and those around you. In other words, stay away from the news. Help people. help do things to alleviate the suffering of others. If you see someone that's in need of help, it could be an older woman trying to get through a door with bags or whatnot. Open the door for them, help to alleviate their suffering, take right action. Don't do things that are conducive to suffering, things such as alcohol and drugs and overeating or eating the wrong kinds of things. Watching things and reading things that aren't going to serve you in life and really only cause you anger and cause you to build up animosity towards the people around you. That is right action. Right action. Take steps to turn yourself into the type of person that is going to be pleasant to be around and that is going to help others, and that is the type of person that can go about life with a freeness about them that causes them to live life in a manner that is reductive of any type of suffering that might come their way. The next of these paths is the path of right propriety. Carry yourself in a manner which is reductive towards suffering and not one which is conducive towards suffering. Basically, don't do things that you wouldn't want done to you. Carry yourself in a manner where you approach everybody as you would want to be approached. Deal with everyone in a manner in which you would want to be dealt. Don't hand things, people, jobs, and tasks you wouldn't want to be handed without any kind of help or assistance. And try to be a productive member of society, a good person to have in society, someone that society will one day look back and be grateful for the fact that they were around in their neighborhood, in their place of work, in their place of business, wherever you may find yourself on the day-to-day. Try to have a set of morals and a set of guidelines that you live by. And those guidelines could be such as we're discussing here along the Eightfold Path. Just try to be a productive member of society and don't kill people. The next concept in the Eightfold Path is right livelihood. Make your living in a way that is beneficial to society. Don't try to make your living as a crook or some kind of criminal. Those ways of making life or making a living are conducive towards suffering in the world and cause undue harm to those around us. And you want to make an honest living, and the way that we go about making a living in life is a big part of who we are and our function in society, and shapes our personality in many ways. And if you go about life trying to make it in a manner which causes suffering of those around you, you will find that you're going to end up a very unfortunate person, and it will end up coming back on you along with the suffering that you put out into the world. So the way we make our lives is important in a greater context for our own peace of mind and satisfaction in life. Make your living in a manner that helps society to function, that will keep people safe or keep people on a good path, or that helps the process here that we're all trying to develop and work and live in together as a collective people. The next concept here among the Eightfold Path is right speech. Don't say things that are negative towards society. I mean, don't tell lies, don't fabricate stories, don't cry wolf, don't gossip or engage in some kind of idle chatter or negative talk about people that you really don't understand or don't know. Don't speak falsely about yourself or those around you. Don't exaggerate things. Don't be egotistical or exaggerate yourself. Don't brag. Don't spread false information. Say things that are reductive towards suffering. Say things that help others. Say things that will help yourself. Share ideas and concepts that are geared towards improving yourself and those around you and society. Don't say things that are just detrimental to people and that will just bring people down or just being a overall negative person. Don't say mean or uncomfortable things to people. I'm not saying that we can't be truthful. Truthful is definitely right speech if you have tact and it's in good context and you're being truthful for the sake of helping someone. I mean, if you're just being truthful just to be negative towards someone or to be a downer towards someone, then maybe you should question whether or not you're engaging in right speech. Is this something that you're saying to help someone alleviate their suffering, or is this something that you're saying to cause more harm? Now, the next concept that we will discuss is going to be right thought. Just as you would say, do, and carry yourself, don't think negative things. Don't think negative things about people. Understand that they have their own life, they have their own path, and had you been born in their shoes, you wouldn't have ended up any different. So don't think negative things about people or those around you. If something happens in your life, don't think negatively of it. Realize that it is just impermanence and it is just interdependency and that it is just selflessness that is unfolding in front of us. And we don't have to think negatively about situations or circumstances or people that come and go in our lives. There are many, many different quotes from the Buddha to Lao Tzu to Bruce Lee and so on, where they will all pretty much say that our thoughts are what we become. And if you constantly think negative, you're going to be training your brain to approach life in a negative way. And then whenever something in life happens to you, automatically your brain is going to go down the path of least resistance. And that is going to be where it is practiced to go more. And that is going to be towards negativity. So right thought. Think positively. Don't think negatively about those around you. Try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and try to find the good in what they do. I'm not saying stick your neck out. I mean, definitely take care of yourself and watch out for yourself and do streetwise things. But at the same time, have patience with people and exercise right thought. Think positive things. Think things that are going to help you. Think about giving people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, when someone does something that you disagree with or that angers you, that anger doesn't hurt anyone but yourself. Now, giving someone the benefit of the doubt, trying to find a higher way to approach the situation will train your brain to be more positive and will help you in the long run. Right thought, that is a very important one, and in many cases could potentially just be everything all encompassing. I mean, everything else is pretty much just a reaction from our own thoughts. The next concept is right meditation. Now, what exactly do they mean by right meditation? I would say right meditation is about knowing when to think and when not to think, when to just act, when to just let things go, to be mindful of ourselves and those around us and where we're at, our context in the world, our relation to things around us, and to have that meditative mindset where you are just in presence. You are present where you are and you're not worried about the future, not dwelling on the past, but more so present where you are. Exercise right meditation and try to meditate. I mean, I know that's not something here that I can say I can comfortably preach because it's not something that I continually do. I'd like to start doing it and develop a meditation process. And that is something that we all definitely need to work on. So all of these things are very much a practice for me. And a lot of this is just reminders to myself about the way that I need to approach life. And meditation is something that I can greatly benefit from. I can tell you, trying to build this Instagram and trying to keep this podcast going, and also my day job, because I do actually have a job and family life, and the wife and kids and everything. It can be kind of overwhelming. It can be kind of overwhelming. My mind most days is just a sea of different things that I'm just trying to nail down. And I definitely understand why people that have a lot of things going on around them need to meditate for, 10 to 20 minutes a day to just kind of clear their mind and push all that away and just kind of be and kind of exist. It's something that I'm going to be looking into doing here in the future, and a practice that I will develop over time that I believe will have its benefits for me. And here we go. That's right meditation right there. That's one thing that I can definitely say that I need to work on for sure. The next concept here in the Eightfold Path is going to be right effort. Right effort. To know that we need to put effort into this. It's not something that comes easy. It's not something that comes natural. It is a very difficult path. It is not meant to be easy. This isn't just peace and nirvana and, we know these 8 concepts now we can go about and live an enlightened life. No, it's very much a practice. All of these things are a practice and something that we have to be consciously aware of and constantly working on to develop and to implement in our lives, rather than just something that we're just aware of. That's another thing for us to beat ourselves up over because we fall short of it. Don't look at all of these different 8 paths as just another area in life where we fall short. Look at it as very much a practice. It's very much a practice, and you can be starting at the bottom. You can be starting a little further on the journey, but it's not going to be something that's ever going to end. It's going to be something that we are going to be practicing until the day we die, whether we are consciously practicing it or not. Even if you decide, I'm no longer practicing this stuff, you are. You very much are. There's no way around that. That's the way that the brain works. That's what our brain does. And we can't escape that. If you're not practicing positivity, then you are practicing whatever else you're thinking. Whatever else you're thinking, whether it be negative, whether it be complacency or whatnot. That is what you're going to be practicing, and that is ultimately what you will become. But there's a famous Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven, where they say, yes, there are 2 paths you can go down, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. So if you have found yourself falling short of these things in life, it's important to remember not to beat yourself up about it, to just accept it and accept that this is a practice. This is a practice. And with all things that we practice, we're never good at it when we start. We're never good at it when we start. There's always someone better. There's always a next level. There's always more practice that can be done. Also on right effort is to know when we need to put forth that effort and when we are just exercising and practicing sloppy sympathy rather than actually doing something. We need to recognize the difference between just looking at someone in some kind of peril and thinking, I wish I can help that person. Why doesn't someone help that person? And actually getting up and taking action and doing it ourselves. There's an old Catholic story that I grew up with and was repeated to me over again when I was growing up throughout my childhood, where there is a man and he lives on top of a hill, and underneath the hill is a village of people. And slowly over time, famine hits those people and they no longer can sustain themselves and they start to die. And eventually the whole village is wiped out because there's no food. And the man that lived on top of the hill one day gets to heaven and he asks God, why did you just let those people suffer and starve to death? Why didn't you do anything? And God tells the man, I did do something. I created you. That's a lesson in right effort, and to put forth the effort where we are compelled to do so and to act from the heart. rather than just sloppy sympathy where we just look and we wish something could be done. To actually take the effort and the time to make the sacrifices that need to be done to put some sort of right effort into the situation, rather than just what the Dalai Lama has called sloppy sympathy. And the last here in the Eightfold Path is right mindfulness. Right mindfulness. In many ways, as same thing as right meditation, but right meditation, I believe, is more about the actual practice of meditation and clearing our minds so that we can provide a person that has an empty being to the world without any kind of judgments about people. Right mindfulness rather, is really going to be about this idea that I'm going to borrow from Jay Garfield here from the lecture that I heard, because he explained this quite well. The way he sums this all up is, you look at the 7 things that we laid out, and it's like, okay, well, there's 7 things here, I can, be good, don't say bad things, carry yourself in an upright manner, do things that are reductive to suffering and not conducive. Make sure you meditate, don't judge people. All of these different concepts here, 7 different ones, and how do you approach life and practice all of these things going forward? I mean, it sounds like it could be a very difficult task, but what right mindfulness is about is to realize that while we may have 7 things here and they're all difficult, you can do all of these 7 things for one moment. For one moment, do and practice all of these 7 concepts. Don't look at this as in, okay, I'm practicing this for the rest of my life. Look at it as, I'm practicing this just for this moment, just for this one moment, and then the next moment, and then the next moment, and then the next moment. And you take it moment by moment, mindfully of that moment, and the way that you're acting and the way that you're carrying yourself and the things that you're saying and thinking and doing. You focus on it for that moment, and then the next moment, and then the next moment, without worrying about the future or dwelling on the past, just living in the moment to moment to moment, practicing these 8 things. And that's what it means to be mindful. I mean, you look at mindfulness and on Instagram or whatnot, and it's a big buzzword. I mean, there's so many different, this is mindfulness, and you see people meditating or people doing yoga or whatnot. But really, at the heart of it, in Buddhist philosophy, when they talk about mindfulness, they're talking about the Eightfold Path. They're talking about these 8 different concepts about how to lead a life that is beneficial towards others and yourself, and that will reduce suffering, and that is not conducive to suffering. That's a very important part of it, is not just the alleviation, but doing things that aren't going to cause it to begin with. They're talking about following this Eightfold Path moment to moment to moment. That is what it means to live mindfully. That is where this concept of, we don't have a future, we don't have a past, all we have is this moment. That is where this all comes from. It's from this idea of the Eightfold Path and how we need to approach and live life moment to moment to moment. Well, that's all I got to say about this here today. And I do thank you all so much for joining me here for another episode of the Mr. Healthy Habits Show. I really do appreciate it, and I really enjoy putting these out here for you guys. It's a really good outlet for me. When I originally started doing this, if I'm being honest, I mean, I really only wanted to go back through the audio lectures that I had heard and create my own personal notebook. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to share this with the world. I'm just going to go ahead and make Instagram my notebook and put my notes out there and see what it does, what effect it has on people, and I'll just make it all public. And then eventually I said, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to turn my notes into a podcast and try to find a way to best share what I've learned with the people around me, because you retain so much of what you read, you retain so much of what you do, but what you teach is where you're going to get most of your retention from. So I know by taking in what I've learned and sort of regurgitating it out into the world and sharing it with you all, I'm going to get the most out of everything that I've learned. So I would encourage you to go beyond this and dive into audiobooks, dive into philosophy books, go to the bookstore and thumb through books, read philosophy on Instagram if you have to. Check out my page at philosophical.reminders. I put a lot of great stuff up on there every day, great perspectives and poetry and thoughts and sayings to help you approach your week and to keep things in perspective. I hope you all enjoyed that. And I wish I can tell you what's going to come next week. I mean, there's a number of things that I'm working on right now. I'm considering a podcast on Friedrich Nietzsche, considering a podcast on the dark aspects of philosophy. I'm also considering another weight loss podcast, and that's probably where I'm going to go. As a matter of fact, in the next episode, we're going to talk weight loss. We're going to take a break from the philosophy for a while, and we're going to discuss weight loss and my journey and how exactly I did it. And I'll lay out a path for you as well. And I hope that it helps you. So, again, thanks for joining me here today. I appreciate it as always. You guys take care, and I hope you have a great week or great weekend or wherever the day may find you. Love you guys. Take care.